is Professor Knoll. Today we're going to be talking about rocks and minerals. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Bill Nye the Science Guy and Paul Zaloom from the television show Beakman's World, because without them I probably wouldn't be interested in science today. And science rules. And to start out, there are a few definitions that we should talk about so that we know what we're dealing with today. Some of the differences between these different categories. Rocks are basically made up of different minerals, and they form the Earth's crust, the outer layer specifically. Different combinations of minerals form rocks, and minerals themselves are made out of elements. So those are some important things to know. There are three different types of rocks. You have igneous rock, which is formed when magma or lava from volcanoes cools down. Some examples of igneous rock would be basalt and granite. Most igneous rock is very hard. Another type of rock is sedimentary rocks, which are formed over millions of years when sediments, which are tiny pieces of rocks and animal skeletons, are pressed together at the bottom of seas and rivers. A few examples of sedimentary rocks would be sandstone, coal, chalk. There's also another one that you are probably familiar with. Some sedimentary rocks do contain fossils, which are basically the remains of living things, like bones or shells. They were buried long ago and turned to stone. And the third type of rock is metamorphic rocks, which are formed when other rocks are changed due to heat or pressure. Some examples of metamorphic rocks would be slate and marble. Metamorphic rocks are also very hard, but can be damaged by things like acid from acid rain or even lemon juice. So those are some definitions, just to get that out of the way. What we're going to be doing today is actually a hardness test. Scientists have come up with a hardness scale, which is a scale that goes from 1 to 10, 1 being the softest and 10 being the hardest. On the lower end of the spectrum you have a talc. Talc is a 1 on the hardness scale. It's pretty soft. And on the opposite end you have something like a diamond, which is extremely hard. That would be a 10 on the hardness scale. For this experiment we are going to be doing a few different tests over here. This test would be you can use a knife blade, or something that might be a little bit safer for you kids would be a steel nail. Also works, but a steel nail and a knife blade have about the same hardness. They are basically between a 5.5 and a 6, so that'll give you some idea of what the hardness of a given rock or mineral is. A fun one that you can do is, here I have a piece of mica, and what you can do is you can take a copper penny. This is actually a newer penny, so it's actually is mostly zinc, but you can take that, and since mica is very soft, you can go ahead and scratch that mica. You can see there's a pretty obvious scratch there. Here's a piece of native copper, just so you can see what that looks like. And I have a bunch of other minerals here that you can take a look at. Also, there's an amethyst here, which is it's basically a type of quartz. That's pretty high on the hardness scale. It has a hardness of 7, so if you tried to take your knife blade over here And if you tried to scratch that with a knife blade, really doesn't do much. You can sort of see like little like hairline scratches, but it's mostly just dust that's like on top of the rock. This is a pretty dusty specimen here, but it doesn't actually do anything to the rock itself. Also, a couple of examples here that I just wanted to point out. This is a piece of dolomite. It's a pretty pure piece there, and this is a dolomite that has a number of different other types of minerals within it. It has some chalcopyrite, narcosite, galena, sphalerite, probably a few other things in it as well, but you can sort of see the difference between a pure piece there and something that has a lot of other types of minerals along with it. And in nature, that's how you'll usually find rocks, is they'll be, you can find a pure chunk that's just one type of mineral, or you can find some of these that are pretty clearly a rock that contains different types of minerals. Like, for example, there's some mica there. You can see what it looks like in its pure form, and then what it looks like when it's within another rock. So there's just a few examples there. You can see examples of each type of rock. You do have some sandstone. That would be your sedimentary rock, and then for metamorphic rock, slate would be a metamorphic rock there, and then an igneous rock. We have a piece of pumice right here. A lot of people use pumice to like basically exfoliate dead skin and stuff like that, because it's pretty rough, but you can use it on your skin for rough patches of skin. And yeah, that's basically the hardness experiment there. You can try this out on different rocks that you might have at home there, or that you find out in nature. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. And yeah, you should be able to answer based on the information that we've gone over today. Let me see here. Alright, so based on what we've done so far, do you think that the amethyst, which is a type of quartz over there, will be able to scratch this zinc penny? Just so you know, zinc has a hardness of about 2.5, just because newer pennies are mostly zinc, whereas older pennies will have more copper in them. But copper and zinc have a similar hardness, so don't be thrown off by that. Do you think that amethyst can scratch the penny? And also, do you think that our amethyst will be able to scratch the knife blade that we talked about earlier? And finally, a little bit more of a fun question. Do you think this petrified wood that we have here, what type of rock do you think that is? Or is it a rock? Let me know your thoughts. I'll pause give you a chance to answer. Alright, so let's find out the answer to those questions. So we have our knife blade here, and we have this piece of quartz, amethyst to be exact. Do you think that this amethyst will be able to scratch that knife blade? Well, let's find out. I'm going to sort of drag this across a bit, and as you can see, it scratched the heck out of that knife blade, because that amethyst is going to be about a 7 on the hardness scale, whereas this knife blade is somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6. So as you can see, it scratched it up quite nicely there. And as far as the zinc penny, we'll do the same thing. We'll go ahead and rub that across the top of one of these amethyst crystals here. And as you can see, it scratched the heck out of that penny as well. It pretty much destroyed the face of old Abraham Lincoln there. Sorry, Abraham. But yeah, that's pretty rough. Amethyst. Any type of quartz is a good actual tool to use if you're trying to do a hardness test, because it's pretty hard. Only a few minerals out there are going to be harder than amethyst, so it's a good thing to scratch other specimens with. And as far as this petrified wood here, that was a bit of a trick question on my part. Petrified wood typically isn't considered a rock, even though basically petrified wood is wood that's been replaced by some type of mineral or rock over a long period of time. But it is, since it is the remains of a living creature, it is considered a fossil, even though technically it is a rock because it's been replaced by rock. But it's also a fossil, and that's primarily what we consider it. But that one's kind of a silly one. It's that's a fun thing, one of the fun things from today. But yeah, that's about it.